Hello there and welcome back to Dukascope TV. I'm Monica Gibson. With me in the studio right now is Ion-Marc Valahu. Ion-Marc, welcome to the studio.
Hello.
Now we're going to be talking about the ECB, the US and beyond today. First up, no policy movement really last week from the ECB. Perhaps the biggest takeaway was this kind of the playing down of a previous pledge from Mario Draghi, which seemed to indicate that the bank balance would be expanding, the balance sheet would be expanding. Now with policy ammunition beginning to look quite scarce, how damaging could this be in terms of credibility, if nothing else, for the ECB?
Well, I think there's twofold. The first aspect is the market always anticipate a lot more than what the policymakers can do and the steps that needs to be taken to perform their task. And the second of all is that, of course, the ECB disappointed because they probably on their own realized that the LTRO was pretty weak. And then the QE, I think QE is further down the road, and I don't think that the Germans are ready for that. And the ECB, even if Draghi is somehow ready for it, he probably feels that if he just goes into QE, countries that need to put reform to restructure their economy will just take it easy and will not take the steps necessary. I can think of Italy and France are the most compelling examples. So I think it's going to be a one step forward, one step back until they get the Germans to accept that QE maybe will be the only solution to get out of this deflation that's taking place.
Indeed. Now that question over the effectiveness of QE still indeed linger, especially if you look at the US economy and the kind of the debate over how effective or what big an impact it would have had on the economy. Japan is also another example of whether or not it's proved effective. Now Yellen will make her speech and then it's over to the US Fed for their policy announcements, etc. That combined with last week's NFP's figures, how are your projections of the US interest rates really stacking up at present?
Well, I still feel that the Fed is behind the curve. And I think that if we look at the past, at these levels of unemployment, these levels of growth, zero interest rates is just not right. I mean, if they work into the market's perception that they could go and start rates, I don't think there's anything wrong of raising just 25 basis points, just to say that the process is on the up move and to prepare the market. Because I think that being behind the ball, at some point they will have to raise maybe 50 basis at a time, and that will take the market down. So the period right now is kind of difficult to expect. We have the taper coming to a close in October at the end of this month, and then probably they won't do something in December because of the holidays and all that. But I think that the numbers are coming out pretty good. Of course, the rest of the world is on a growth path that's completely different from the US. But I believe that the Fed should at least give the go-ahead for the first rate hike soon.
The divergence between the ECB and the US Fed continues to ramble on this year, but given all that we have discussed, which sort of assets would you say are most favourable and should be looked at a little bit more closely by investors given this current economic climate?
Well, clearly, central banks around the world want you to move your risk measurements and move over to the riskier class, which will hopefully restart the economies, for example, in Japan, for example, in Europe, so the QE in Europe. That's the idea, that people will take more risk and banks will lend more, companies will expand, and that will restart the machine. In the States, it has worked somehow, but to the favor of equities. The economy did turn around and perform well, but they did the measures that they restructured a lot of companies went bankrupt. We refinanced the economy, and now some parts of the United States have cheaper labor than maybe China or some emerging markets. So it's a double process. You can do QE, but if you don't do the structuring necessary, like in Japan, then you'll have a constant deflation and the economy is going nowhere. And that's what's happening in Japan. They don't want to take the painful measures of letting companies go, restructure all this bad debt that's still there from the 1990s. And so the QE, as far as I'm concerned, in Japan is ineffective.
Well, Ion-Marc, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Take care. Okay, well that's all from Ion-Marc and myself for the moment, but make sure you keep clicking back to Dukascopy TV for many more exclusive interviews. Goodbye for now.